A good Erev Shabbos, Bershus, and with the permission of friends old and new. Continue. The next Mishnah goes as follows. Chamisha Talmidim hayu lo Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. 5 students Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai had. Or to him there were 5 students. And now the Mishnah comes and names these 5 students. Some Mishnayos have the appellation of Rebbi before each of the Talmidim's names, and some of them do not. Right now, for the purposes of our shir or mini shir, I will address them without the title of Rebbi for now. Who were the Talmidim? Who were these 5 students of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai? Elazar ben Hukanas, Yeshua ben Hananya, Yosi Cohen, Shimon ben Nesanel, and Elazar ben Aruch. So most of the Mefarshim ask the following question: Chamisha Talmidim hayu lo? Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai only had 5 students? He had lots of students. He was the Rosh and the Nasi of Kal Yisrael for 40 years. And he was Yoshev V'Doresh every single day. You mean to tell me that he only had 5 students? No, of course not. He had many students. But of all of the students, these are the most noteworthy of his Talmidim. I'd like to suggest the following. Why does the Mishnah enumerate 5 Talmidim? Only 5. So I posit as follows. One of the overarching themes of Avos, aside from the Musar, Haskel, and the Musar, and the adages and dictums and life messages that it comes to teach us, it also comes to teach us the Torah and the Mesorah. Moshe kibal Torah misina Musaro liYoshua, and on, etc., midor dor. So here, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, we have to analyze this statement and maxim of this Mishnah that he had only 5 students, or he had 5 students, in the context of the time in which he lived. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, as we mentioned last time, he was the one who preserved the continuity of Torah and Mesorah. At the brink of the destruction of the temple, he asked Vespasian, Tein li Avna v'chachamel, and through this request, he was able to preserve throughout all of the generations the Torah throughout all of time, the time today, even now as we know it. So therefore, within this particular context, within this overarching framework of the Torah and the Mesorah, he had 5 students. What did Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai need to do? He needed to send Chamisha Chumshei Torah into the future. So here he selects 5 Talmidim, each one representing one of the books of the Sefer of the Pentateuch, of Chamisha Chumshei Torah. According to the Lubavitcher Rebbe, let's go down the line. In his Mamorim on Avos, he elucidates this particular thought that each of these Talmidim, each one of these students was comparable and represented Chamisha Chumshei Torah. So Rabbi Elazar ben Hukanas, he corresponds to Sefer Bereshis, because he was called Rabbi Elazar HaGadol. He was called Rabbi Elazar the Great. And why? What is the connection between Sefer Bereshis and Rabbi Elazar ben Hukanas, who was called and termed Hagadol, the Great One? Since Sefer Bereshis discusses at length and relates the creation story, therefore Chazal termed the wonder of creation itself Hagdoila, Zu Ma'aseh Bereshis. The greatest wonder of all, this is Bereshis. And since Rabbi Elazar ben Hukanas, he was referred to as Hagadol, and Sefer Bereshis, which is primarily the book of creation itself, Genesis, and this was the miracle of the Gadol, therefore Rabbi Elazar ben Hukanas, he corresponds to Sefer Bereshis. Rabbi Yeshua ben Hananya, in the next Mishnah, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai says on him, Ashrei Yuladetoi, happy is she who bore him. And since Sefer Shmos names, deals, and discusses the birth of Am Yisrael, the Lubavitcher Rebbe corresponds, Rabbi Yehoshua ben Chananya, Ashra Yeladeto, happy it is, she who bore him, to the names that are enumerated in Sefer Bereshis and all of the births that transpire there. Rabbi Yossi HaKohen. Rabbi Yossi HaKohen correlates to Sefer Vayikra. As we all know, Sefer Vayikra is also called Toras HaKohanim. Rabbi Shimon ben Nisana, the fourth of the students that are enumerated in this Mishnah of the Talmidim, of the famed Talmidim of Rebbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. He's comparable to Sefer Bamidbar, which is called Sefer HaPikudim, or as we refer to it in the language of the Pentateuch, as Numbers. Since Rabbi Shimon ben Nesanel was dubbed in the next Mishnah a Yiras Chet, one who is God-fearing, a fearful of sin, he was always scrupulous with din and cheshbon, with judgment and an accounting. He was always medakdek and constantly counting his actions, his days, his weeks, and even his years, to ensure that all the days of his life, they counted as something. They were worthwhile, and that they were all filled with Torah. And of the fifth of the Talmidim of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai comes to us the name Rabbi Elazar ben Aroch. And he corresponds to Sefer Dvarim, because he was referred to as Kemayon HaMizgaber in the next Mishnah by Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. What is a Ma'ayon HaMizgaber? An ever-flowing spring, or a spring that overflows, or a spring that never ceases to flow, so to speak. So what was and who was Rabbi Elazar ben Aroch? So the Gemara tells us, Chazal tell us, he was an individual, shemoisif people v'svarta medaito. He was always involved in pilpul and giving a sfara, a logical response based upon his knowledge. And how does he represent Sefer Devarim? Because Sefer Devarim was added on to by Moshe Rabbeinu himself and written by him. And since Moshe Rabbeinu received the Torah from the font, from the ever-flowing spring of Sinai and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so as Moshe added on, so to speak, Sefer Devarim, as a repeat and a reiteration of the four previous Svarim, so too corresponds Rabbi Elazar ben Aroch to Sefer Devarim, Deuteronomy. Chamisha Talmidim Hayu lo Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, 5 students Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai had. These are the 5 students that would go on into the future, and it is they who would be the ones who would bring Torah in a generation that witnessed a destruction of the Beis Hamikdash and in exile almost into the never-ending tomorrows of the future. Chamisha Talmidim hayu lo Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. 5 students Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai had. Chamisha Chumshe Torah. A good Shabbos.